Into the Nexus is a production of amove.tv. Bookmark amove TV for other great video games and esports podcasts. Into the Nexus is sponsored by listeners like you via patreon.com/ITN. Welcome back, everybody. This is Into the Nexus, the podcast all about heroes of the storm. I'm Garrett Weinzierl, he's Kyle Fergusson, and we're going to do a lot of talking into a microphone and create a thing called a podcast. Hey, Kyle, how you doing?
The future is now.
The future is now. Actually, podcasts are like quaint, and they're the they're the vinyl equivalent of internet entertainment.
I don't know about that. I think they really hit their stride in the last 2 years. I mean, particularly when you hear those comedians getting up and saying things like, well, we really kind of invented podcasting about 3 years ago.
They've been saying that for the last decade.
True. You know, we can also make the argument that we are also broadcasting this live on a completely unknown platform. So we got a twofer here.
Twitch?
Yeah, Twitch, man.
How is it a completely unknown platform?
Because they used Facebook.
Well, that's their mistake.
With good reason, though. I learned this week that advertisers like McDonald's and these sort of guys, they don't even know Twitch is a thing.
That's their mistake.
It certainly is. But
I'm just going to keep saying that's their mistake.
Like Facebook.
Okay, I'm just going to keep saying things like that's their mistake until you give me one good reason why I heard from no one about Heroes of the Dorm this weekend. Heroes of the Dorm.
I saw a lot on Twitter. The live crowd certainly loved it.
I'm not talking about Twitter, man. Twitter is your own customized, tailored echo chamber.
True.
Heroes of the Dorm for the last 2 years have been something very special for me personally. It's that one time of the year that I hear from people I don't regularly talk to about esports. And this year, dead. Nothing. No word from anyone. And that was kind of sad. Yeah,
I feel you. You know, people complained about the quality. It was good enough. It did get a lot of views, according to Facebook.
According to Facebook. And it sounds fishy to me.
Yep, I checked it out live quite a few times, and it was around 5,000 actual live viewers.
My
if you watched
God.
in the actual website, you got to avoid the streaming emojis that apparently Facebook has as part of its programming.
There is a way to turn that off. I couldn't tell you how. It's probably something like if you unblock your racist uncle, the emojis go away.
That's how you do it.
Yeah. So, no, I don't know. I didn't plan to start this episode kind of crapping on streaming Dorm on Facebook, and I nothing good is happening of this, right? Like I feel like the Heroes team's probably aware that us diehards were displeased with that decision. I don't think I'm adding anything new to the conversation, but it's come and gone now, right? This was the big weekend. It was the finals, and it was disappointing.
Yep, and the end games were okay. As often, these tournaments where two teams that never really see each other or gather information on one another come together and things can flop a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. That being said, I did tune in for the finals. It was a total stomp. Congratulations, UT Arlington. But I mean, the production itself, absolutely fan-freaking-tastic. The set design, amazing. They do such a good job with that.
Yes.
Gilly and Dread, Kyle, and what I am about to say, if you know me personally, I hope carries the weight I mean it to. They have reached tastosis levels for me.
Oh, snap.
I love them. I absolutely love them. I haven't loved a casting duo like this really ever, except for Tasteless and Artosis when it comes to StarCraft casting. I believe Gilly and Dread have reached that for me, and it really kind of clicked this weekend while I was watching the finals because it was a bit of a stomp. It's not what we normally expect. It's, as you like to call it, kind of the backyard chain fight. And they were they seemed genuinely just jazzed about everything that was transpiring before them. and I got caught up in it, and it made what would have been, I think, kind of a lackluster finals. It made me still get caught up in it, feel that esport hype. They did a really good job. I was just very overall pleased with them, and overall with the production, which laid on to the layers of I'm sad this is on Facebook, because they did such a good job that it deserved to be showcased, I think, on a grander scale.
The production was unreal, and for those who did witness it live, I was not one of them this year as it was down in Vegas, but they certainly enjoyed themselves, and that energy and getting to go to your first real live esport event, particularly if you can't make it to BlizzCon. I mean, Heroes of the Dorm is a production, and it's more produced than our HGC in many ways, with the player stats, with the asides, with the interviews, the graphics in-game, just a lot of really cool stuff that, of course, I hope to see in those environments for our finals. I do not expect HGC to come out this weekend and go, by the way, guys, it's Heroes of the Dorm production all the time here. That looks exhausting.
Yeah. yes, it does. You're absolutely right. I mean, they just do such a killer job with it. So I'm sad I didn't watch more of it, but it wasn't convenient. So.
And there's hard work to do right now. And that's what I've been up to.
Yes.
Hard work. Oh, my goodness. Back in Diamond 3.
Nice. Did you fall out?
Oh, remember I placed in Platinum 1 this season.
I thought you already got back. I already thought you got yourself back into Diamond.
Diamond, certainly, but now up to the 3 part of it.
Gotcha. Oh, that's right. Last week you were in Diamond 5. So, yes, you've climbed two entire ranks. So, congrats, sir. What's been working for you?
Nazebo.
Okay. All right. Okay. I apologize in advance to the Into the Nexus listeners, because I'm sure some of you feel like maybe Kyle and I just play the same thing. We did not plan this week, but I have also been playing Nazebo for no reason whatsoever. It just kind of seemed like I should pick him up. I finally had a hero's thought independently of Kyle telling me I should go and do something.
That's great.
So, yeah, I've been playing. Granted, I'm not tryharding with him. This isn't me. I'm not picking him in Heroes League draft or anything. I'm still just hanging out in quick match. And I had a very up and down Heroes Week, Kyle. I had some debilitating losses. I went on a 3-game losing streak in quick match because I was chasing my Tychus Master Skin. And as it turns out, Kyle, Tychus, with his reduced range, with no tank, or a tank that might as well not be a tank, is awful.
Yes.
Just
Tychus
awful.
Really suffers. I actually pulled out a Tychus this week for a Hero League game.
Oh, I will play Tychus for you any day if you're gonna tank or hold things still for me.
The deciding factor in that particular game was that we needed a bruiser, and they had a double tank, but no main tank on the enemy side. It was Zarya and Varian. And the ability for me to do these huge amounts of damage against a team that couldn't regenerate its main tanks, with the double support that I had that could actually allow me to stand in those offensive places, using Odin to transform into a very long-range poke character when it came time for the curse. It was a really powerful pick, and I felt like my choice there changed that game. And that's actually the game I got to Diamond 3 with. Nice.
So Nazebo for the brunt of it, and Tychus put you up over at the top.
Absolutely. And it was just spam Nazebo time. Through Plat, that was kind of easy, which was very relaxing. It was good to know that Nazebo able to control and change the battlefield, trap immobile players, whether they were just not stutter stepping, which a lot of them weren't, or they were something like Gul'dan. Such a powerful move to lock them down and sort of put a call to action to the rest of the team. Plus, I mean, if you actually are willing to spend your Gargantuan, you can 1v1 someone mad easy. But that's starting to fall out a little bit. I mean, Nazebo still feels really powerful at Diamond 3, but I'm noticing now that our auto attackers are starting to feel a little lackluster, whereas I think now in the Diamonds that spellcasters can dance. Every Kael'thas at this level can walk backwards and throw a spell. It takes commitment and decision-making to lock on with auto attacks. So I'll be kind of transitioning almost Hearthstone climb style, do your fast decks early and your serious decks later on.
Yeah, no, I hear you there. Okay. Well, I kind of had the had a bit of an opposite, and like I said, I've still just been hanging out in quick match trying to get my master skins before the swap over. So I was chasing that Tychus Masters game, went on a debilitating losing streak, and I've turned Draft Allied chat back on. So I just got called every name in the book because I was low damage, and to that I say to that one Vala who was judging me, was the 5,000 extra damage you did over me worth the 7 extra deaths, sir? That's what I would like to put out into the world. But yeah, everyone gets mad, wants to blame someone, so they blame the low health assassin who's playing smartly because their tank is awful or non-existent.
The Vala epidemic is one of the most bizarre phenomenons in Heroes of the Storm. It is just this gathering of very angry people, perhaps. I mean, she was that tier S, that very top tier hero for a bit. As the meta changed, she sort of fell down a little bit, but still considered one of the very strongest assassins that you can take for your team. In particular, in Diamond right now, most bans are going into Zarya and Tassadar to stop the enemy team from making a Super Vala or a Super Tracer, in fact. I don't think I'm capable of such a thing. Trusting my team, trusting for peels, trusting for heals in the first place, and then I see people spamming these games in like silver with Vala. I don't know how you do it. That sounds like the most maddening thing on earth. I think the problem is, Garrett, that over the past couple weeks, we've been having a lot of conversations. We're going to talk about solo laning today as well. I've been amassing knowledge, and I've begun to feel like I've seen the Matrix, and I can't stop looking at it. This week, I had a game, Battlefield of Eternity. First pick, Lost Vikings. Look at the guy's account. Over 1,600 games on Lost Vikings, more than his 23-game Tyrande. Like, this guy got Heroes of the Storm and said, I'm Lost Vikings main.
All right. Okay.
So I'm like, sweet. Bring it on, dude. Let's see what you can do. And he's like, I'll solo lane top on Battlefield Eternity. I'm like, awesome, man. Like, you're going to have Olaf there. You're going to be 3-manning this lane. It's going to dominate. It'll be awesome. And then we get a Varian. And when you start to put together all the pieces, like I have, Varian is a late-game hero. He's got to get to 10 to have any power. Or Lost Vikings is an early-game hero. That's going to give you maybe an XP advantage, but here's certainly a solo lane advantage. There's lots of videos right now, people doing this on Braxis, pro players, playing Vikings on Braxis as a single-lane character. So I'm all for it, but this Varian just starts trashing the Lost Vikings, and I'm just sitting there going like, dude, you're the one.
You're the problem here.
And those sort of realizations have been difficult for me, for sure.
I feel like that one probably is significantly more difficult because you have a player, Varian in this case, that starts just trash talking another character. Do you find it's easier to kind of put it aside when you notice something like that, but at least no one's getting on each other's cases, and you're just like, okay, buckle down, adapt, make this work?
Certainly. Like, if Varian was willing to accept that. I mean, that's the thing. We have to accept in every strategy we talk about on this show, and every time we think about Hero League, that, let's take, for example, shields don't function the same for us as they do for pro players. Shielding metas, while it has leaked into our own games because it is very powerful, because you can enable these super tracers, super Valas, gray mains, what have you, that is about catching damage that is likely to come out while a Malfurion heal goes under it. For the pro players, it's about just trying to avoid their ability to burst down a single guy. When you watch and listen and see all of those tier lists, everything there is about 5 people targeting a single character and they just explode. So if I'm a better Zul'jin than a Vala, I'm going to pick Zul'jin, even if we need a late game or we're doing an early game comp, or maybe it doesn't mix perfectly and a Vala would look better for personal skill. And that's why I love that Lost Vikings. And I was like, bring it on, man. Because I saw his account.
All right. Well, I mean, you mentioned this actually off stream at the Hero Summit, I think. You said you felt like you were starting to see the Matrix. And it was, and it's going to happen, right? There's no way to fight it. Except to actively fight it.
Right. And in the past, what I would do, particularly for my friends, is not learn about their characters and their favorites. So I couldn't be upset by something they did wrong. Now I see a Murky do a March of the Murlocs into a Zerg wave, And I know that that ability does not do any damage to monsters. It doesn't attach to them. And that spell is not whiffed. Or if you're fighting a Cho'Gall and he starts winding up his fist, if you stun him during that, he's going to be on cooldown, and he didn't go anywhere. So saving your... It's so much about, and as we talk about solo laning as well, so much is just about understanding your opponent and what they're capable of. And I'm happy. I'm very happy with my Diamond 3 goal, and now it's time to take a little break. Because just like working out, you don't work out so you can just stop lifting weights. It doesn't work that way. In fact, unless you reach a body that you're 100% pleased with, and that's 100% fine. I mean, why do you think you see... people like to make fun of people on the internet, and they see like them lifting tiny weights. And they're like, wow, they're an athletic person. Why are they lifting such small weights? They don't want to get any bigger. And if you're happy being silver or wherever you are and you're just having fun, like, awesome. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're going for pure strength and top level, you're always going to lift more weights every time. And it's always going to be more difficult. It's not going to get easier the higher you go. You're just accustomed to the difficulty of it at that point.
Yeah, it's a fantastic analogy. I'm so glad that you've been working out with Kristen again, because it leads to beautiful analogies like this.
Well, I'm also a little excited today because today I got to 5 months. I've been working out 3 days a week for 5 months. I added running to it now, had 3 weeks going strong. It has been exhausting. I'm up 30 pounds. Like, I've been a stick my whole life. I'm really excited.
That's awesome, man. Well, congrats. Well, anyway, so after my debilitating Tychus losses, I just decided I'm going to play Nabo. And it just works, man. It just works. Just top numbers, just murdering people. I already know how to like lead an immobilizing ability because Tyrande was like my first love, so I'm landing zombie walls pretty damn consistently. It's fine. It's all fine. I should have been playing Nabo forever ago. This is on my list, my heroes list of shame. It's one of the heroes I've barely freaking touched. Sub-level 5. And it's not a hero that I hate. It's just, as I mentioned in the past, it's a hero whose theme I've just never been a big fan of. I don't like Witch Doctor in Diablo 3, and while I don't let my inner role player 100% dictate what I play in Heroes of the Storm, it does show up a little bit. And that's what was happening with Nabo. So finally, looked up some builds, watched some guides. I think there's a lot of Nabo in my future.
He's an awesome character. He's readily available. He's not getting any bans. His toolkit, and I love more of the toolkit kind of style on him, where you go the range and then the regeneration. Dead Rush is one of my favorite augments to an ability in the entire game. And it used to be trash. People would get angry. People still are a little confused. They get a little angry about Dead Rush sometimes. When they don't see that spider across the build, they can question what you're up to. But
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's the build I've been doing. And I used to do the spider build, and I didn't like him that much. And now I'm taking Thing of the Deep. I'm taking Blood Ritual. I'm taking Dead Rush. And it feels like an entirely new character to me. Now, this is not me saying everyone go out there and blind pick these talents. Think about what you want. Think about what you're going up against. Yes, all that and jazz. But I'm more or less learning this character again for the first time. I tried to put everything out of my head. I tried to forget the spider build and go in with new eyes. And that's what I've been doing. And he appears to really be working out.
The difficulty is that is a level 1 pick on the 20% range on your abilities. So I've met kind of a Rainer situation where I can't really do it without Thing of the Deep. If I'm fighting a whole lot of melee and I'm the main spellcaster, I will do a spider build, but that 20% enables me to put zombie walls in front of that gate before they get away, or grab that chromie in the back.
Yeah, I don't look at Thing of the Deep the same as the issue we've mentioned with taking Give Me More on Rainer. Give Me More really does truly 100% feel like a crutch. It's the right pick in a lot of cases in Quick Match. Just 100%. Half the time Rainer's the tank. You better take Give Me More. But if you were trying to learn something and apply it to Hero League, you were just gimping yourself, because you needed to be doing more damage on Rainer. Thing of the Deep, though, it just lets Nabo better.
Right. And he's got such great power spikes. He really does grow exponentially When you hit that blood ritual at 4, now you can be a constant lane presence. You can double soak now. Real powerful on Blackheart's Bay. Or Tomb of the Spider Queen. Get those stacks up for 20 eventually. You don't have to. Nazebo could be taken on any map, really. But then at 7, you can absolutely, you could do it before, but now you can 100% burn through a mercenary camp with very little mana loss and no health loss. And then 13 has Superstition. It has Ice Block. Like, just fantastic, fantastic talents. I mean, I've even had to break some habits, which are a little scary now. Superstition, I just stand in the Phoenix. Stand in the Hyperion. Why not? You're taking 50% less damage from those abilities. In fact, I'm starting to be careful again because I was having a bit of a giggle as I was doing my climb, particularly in that flat area. As, you know, Falstad would dive me post 13. I now have Superstition. And he would just be like, spell, 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 wiggle. I'm moving. Another spell. And you're like, dude, auto attack me. I take 30% more damage from that. If you would just auto attack me, I'm dead. But they just keep coming. They don't realize the intricacy in how you changed at 13.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. He has such a good talent system. More of this on more heroes, please. Especially that level 13. My God, the shift at 13.
Yeah. And it's worth bringing up, though, that in the Korean scene this past week, there was a Plague of Toads build Nazebo that did extremely well. And it was against all melee, basically. And you can imagine how that would be powerful. The stacks are easy to get. You're giving yourself armor later on against melees, which are usually doing a good mix of their auto attacks. A little more thorough, I think, in their auto attacks, too, throughout all leagues, just because that's all you are.
Right. I like that. I want to try. And, of course, it came out of Korea.
Of course.
To the surprise of no one. Oh, well, that's good, man. I'm glad to hear all that. Well, that's our. I think that's enough for our top of the show talk. Let's get into
the Church of Nazebo at that for now.
Yeah. Let's leave it there. More on that later. Soon we'll start getting those emails again. Like, why do you guys like Nazebo so darn much? And I'll just refer them back to episode 161. There you go.
Because he does it all, and I am driven nuts when Merc camps aren't taken at the proper time. That's the real reason why.
That too. All right, let's get into it. This week's Heroes of the Storm news.
Run, boys! Ha-ha! Let's liven up this place!
Put me to the stage.
Click the play button, and let's get started.
Ooh, let's save ourselves an email right now. That was the Chinese HGC, and not Korea. Thank you, Chad.
All right. Thank you, Oblivious. Hey, Kyle, you want to take a stroll down memory lane?
Do I?
Do you? I do.
We all have to.
I do, yeah. Up on the Heroes of the Storm, like the official website right now, is a new post called The Sands of Time, and it is the Heroes of the Storm timeline, which just makes me feel old. Older than the fact that my little brother is turning 25. Older than the fact that I'm in a whole different bracket now when filling out age groups. Older than the fact that I work on a daily basis with a kid who was born after the N64 was launched.
Wow.
All of those things. It's just compacted by some of these facts from this Heroes of the Storm timeline. Kyle, spring 2015. Can you remember a time when Thrall, the Lost Viking, Sylvanas, and Kael'thas were considered new heroes?
I certainly remember Kael'thas. I can't forget that one.
Yeah. Can you remember a time when we didn't have Sky Temple and Tomb of the Spider Queen?
That's a weird one for me.
Yeah.
And I still feel like I haven't gotten to play Sky Temple enough. Not because I want to, necessarily, but just there's a lot to figure out there. It's a very unique map.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nuts looking through this. Like some of the stuff that I've forgotten. Like I haven't thought about Eternal Conflict in a while. When we got the big surge of Diablo heroes, we got like our first of many Brightwing reworks around that time.
It's hard to imagine the game without Artanis.
It is, most certainly. And what else in here, man? Like what else like glares out at you? Like what? Really?
I mean, it's a trip going through this, and it's a great opportunity for Blizzard to show newcomers, perhaps, how much has been done to the game if they did try it originally and didn't like it. It certainly is a nice little portfolio for any kind of investors who might be thinking about getting on the esports train here.
Oh, yeah,
but
most certainly.
Not a lot hiding if you've lived it all. There is no secrets in here for you to dig up.
No, definitely not. Man, BlizzCon 2015 was pretty huge. Now that I think about it. Like Cloud9 winning, Cho'Gall being announced.
That's right. And Cho'Gall really, I think, set the tone for what Heroes is capable of. But then to just follow that up, Lunara probably about the least impactful one on this list, but Greymane, Li Ming, Zul, Dahaka, back to back. Like, what a star release.
Yep.
And then you kind of go, Medivh, Gul'dan, Ariel, they have their place. And certainly Gul'dan has really carved out his place.
He had a
in
very
the professional scene.
He had an excruciatingly rocky start, but yeah, now he's a staple. I love the idea of. I love that you point to Cho'Gall and you're like, this is what shows everyone what Heroes is capable of. I mean, and you're absolutely right. You are right. It's like here's a nerdy analogy that'll land on maybe half of our listeners. It's like Doctor Who and getting your friends into Doctor Who. What do? Well, if it's modern Doctor Who you're trying to get them in, you show them Blink. Is Blink the bread and butter of Doctor Who? No, not at all. That is not what you can expect from your general weekly episode of Doctor Who, but it is what it is capable of. And that's what Cho'Gall is. It is not going to be your day-to-day, your game-to-game experience in Heroes of the Storm, but it is what Heroes of the Storm is capable of. Sorry, I'm really proud of that analogy. I'm just kind of letting it land.
It's good. Blink is a good episode. I'll agree with you there. Actually, I watched the grumpy one first. The bald, not bald, but shaven.
Chris Eccleston.
Yeah, but I got in at Tennant. That was what I actually enjoyed. He was a bit more joyous.
Most certainly. Still enjoy me some Eccleston, but yeah, it's really cool to look back, and also like clearly this is the perfect time to put something out like this out, right? Because 2.0 is right around the corner.
It makes me very curious to see if we're going to have these sort of impactful heroes in the future. Looking back, it does seem like the team has gotten a lot more careful. Certainly on release, because we've had rougher releases for a lot of characters. Ragnaros probably being the most recent that was considered OP. Variant kind of snuck slowly into his OP.
Yeah, and then lost it.
When you go back to that 2015, 2016 post BlizzCon and just see that wall of heroes, it was a time.
Yeah, and if you're relatively new, Greymane used to be a lot more common.
He's making a comeback though.
Oh, he is. But yeah. I feel like in the last 3 months, he's been kind of in the outer edges.
I think what we should broadcast at the creators of this game, looking at all this, is that the player base is capable of a lot of things. And we're to toot our own horn here, we're a very smart group of folk. Look at all we've dealt with. Look at all the metas we've been through and had to figure out. Kael'thas alone. Just looking at his face makes me go, oh, God, remember the days in Original Haunted Minds as we all tried to spread out for the first time ever.
I think that was the fastest master skin I ever acquired. It's the only time in the history of this game where I mained the most popular hero.
I mean, the game coming out without Thrall, without Sylvanas. They're missing a lot of those beta releases that they kind of, snuck in there before it officially released.
Yeah, but, and you remember old Illidan versus shortly after launch Illidan?
Hardly, but he wasn't nearly as mobile as he needed to be, and he didn't capture the Warcraft 3 fantasy of buying all your agility books.
No, not at all. I much personally prefer New Illidan, though at the time it was such a change. That was really, I want to say, at least that I can think of, could be wrong on this, the first major rework I remember happening. And I feel like it was a while before we got another one that was that hero changing. Because he was so different after that change. And at the time I was like, oh my God, it's not the same at all. Can you do this in a game like this? And the answer is yes. They've done it an obscene amount of times since. And I think for the better.
And thinking about all those things we've had to learn, like Zarya, not targeting her shields, I think we can handle more. And I encourage the creators of Heroes of the Storm to go ahead and give us those unique abilities that they might be afraid of putting on the scene.
No, I'm with you.
There's nothing confusing about feign death on Rexar when he lays down. I mean, sure, your first time you go, he's invincible? What's going on there? But, take Nazebo out of his body, spirit walk him instead of ice block. Let's get that wisp. Well, maybe not a wisp. I don't trees, something, a repair bot for Malfurion. Those visuals do not concern me. Look at all we've learned and had to deal with.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. It's been quite the journey. A lot of relearning having to go, and I think it's all for the best. I mean, it makes for an interesting game. This podcast is like simultaneously the easiest and most difficult podcast to put together. It writes itself for the most part. There's so much happening in this game. This is a relatively quiet week, by the way, and we're 30 minutes deep. And we've barely made it through the show. And at the same time, there is so much to learn, but it could be the only game. This very easily could be the only game I play. I just happen to also enjoy other things Blizzard makes.
Certainly. Well, and it's important to have those breaks. This is if you take it seriously and you're going to climb and all, it's a very serious game that requires a lot of practice, a lot of mechanical work to get good at, a ton of knowledge to even understand a 1v1 lane. And maintaining that level of knowledge and that skill is very difficult. It's certainly my main game, but, I'm enjoying a little bit of Mass Effect right now. Maybe tempting with the idea of starting a new Darkest Dungeon.
Ooh, nice. Very nice. Well, Ungoro is out, so.
That too. Oh, that's good.
I saw you
good
on the
stuff.
other day. I haven't seen you in Hearthstone in forever.
I know. The Jade thing was fun, but I feel like the past two expansions really forced your hand into making an easier deck for yourself. Like, why go nuts and be creative when you can just Cthulhu or Jade?
Cthulhu didn't stick around that long.
Cthulhu was really powerful, but that for me as a warlock, but I don't go above 16 because of the amount I play. I'm very happy in that field.
Yeah, exactly. So,
but finally, since the original release, since the beta of Hearthstone, I have a functioning beast deck for Hunter, and I love it.
I knew you were going to be excited about that. Well, anyways, to our listeners out there, if you haven't checked it out already, you want to go down memory lane, or if you're relatively new to the game, you want to study up on your Heroes of the Storm history, head on over to the official site. They did a really good job on this. I think a lot of effort went into this. It's great. Their web team's been killing it, by the way. I don't know if we've complimented them enough, but they've been doing such a good job on it. I'm not used to the esports portal on a Blizzard website to actually be worth a darn, and also probably the best place to go to keep up to date, to know what's coming up and where to watch it.
Good articles as well. I mean, if you want to find your news, Reddit is always an interesting place to explore if you have the spare time. But the official Heroes site, here'sthestorm.com/esports, and then Gosu Gamers is really all you need. Yeah. It's great.
They do a fantastic job. Speaking of which, HGC returns tomorrow, Kyle. Tomorrow. And I mean, it's starting off with a dull roar. We're just going to have Gale Force Esports playing Teammate.
Yes, just they're not leading with the no. This is getting right down to it in the first weekend back, and it's very exciting. The divide has grown quite a bit between these various teams. 6-1 at the moment for Tempo Storm, or compared to 1-6 for someone like Team Naventic.
Yes, it has. But there's still a lot of games to go, right? They could close that gap.
I'm excited to see. I've heard this is being played on the March 28th patch. So we won't have everything, but most of it.
Most of it. I think the big thing there is we will have the new version of Tassadar.
Well, nerf Tassadar, but not Cassia. Or new ETC, which is interesting.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the change I'm most disappointed about, is that we're not going to see new ETC. But whatever the case, new Tassadar is going to be a big one, I think.
I think he'll still be seen a lot.
Yeah. I'm curious to see how it pans out. If it's as kind of important as important of a puzzle piece as it was last season.
There's when you really analyze it, there's not a real way to fix it right now. He has Sight, which denies ganks. He has the instant shields that fly through the air and change a fight. And he has the mobility to get away. If you ban Tassadar, you start looking at Zarya, who lacks mobility, has the poke, which you can use for Sight. But you probably want for that sweet damage.
Yeah. Well, we also got an update to the 2.0 beta, and it's mostly just a rarity update, which, you know, is kind of dull, except it brought one thing to light to me that I honestly didn't notice as much as we've seen 2.0, and even though we got to play around with 2.0 a week early with the summit, I didn't realize heroes themselves had rarities associated with them.
They do, very much the way they cost different amounts in game, rather real money or gold. Chromie I unlocked as a legendary loot box item.
Man, that seems so arbitrary.
It's weird because there's nothing really else to do with the gold except for purchase heroes and rerolls. So why not just use that system to purchase heroes in the first place? But at the same time, you're getting gold. That's your, as Gorath so well put it, your frequent flyer miles.
Oh, yeah.
In Heroes of the Storm.
That's perfect. I didn't hear that. Well played, Gorath. That's a perfect analogy.
And the rest of it's all these loot boxes and whatnot. If you own all the heroes, legendary hero drops are going to be one of the best ways to get shards. So you're not really missing out by owning so much. In fact, you're probably at an advantage.
No, it just means you get to stock up on really cool cosmetics.
And most of these are newer characters. Like I said, Chromie was there, but anything that released in the last 3 months seems to be in Legendary. But they added in Kael'thas Tracer. Or Tracer's kind of... Kael'thas, too. They lowered his cost a while ago.
Yeah, Kael'thas, bring him down. What are you doing? Tracer, I get. She's very unique, new hotness, Overwatch, all that kind of jazz. Get him out of there. Kael'thas has been here forever. He's a staple.
Yeah, not overly complex like Tracer. You know, you don't need to sort of hide it under some sort of difficulty curve. Nor did Thrall get bumped up, so it's not like a own the main characters kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, that being said, if I think back to when Kael'thas was originally added to the game, I do remember it taking about a good 3 days for me to wrap my head around, like, using D to augment all of your other abilities.
Right.
Once I got it, I felt dumb, because I'm like, this is super simple. You just... Because there is a cooldown on it, so you're most likely going to be augmenting just one ability at a time, and depending on your build, you're probably going to keep augmenting the same ability. But
I think Kael'thas is one of the perfect examples of the old phrase, easy to learn, tough to master.
Absolutely, 100%. I would like him to be lower just because I think he teaches some really good core concepts.
Or at least on the free-to-play rotation enough. I'm not sure if anything's changing about that. I don't think it is. But... experiencing living bombs is very important for new players.
100%. Teaches you about subtle effects to keep your eye out for.
What about these clouds that are now legendary instead of epic? Am I right, as someone who doesn't really understand art, to think that these things are easy and kind of out of place in a legendary box?
I don't know, man. People really like the floating, standing on it mounts. They seem to just be popular generally in this game. I think they're cool. I don't have a Nimbus mount. I really want one because I'm a raging Dragon Ball Z fan, and I haven't purchased one. So I'm just glad they're coming to loot boxes because hopefully I get one.
That's true. Then, of course, the other scandal is the announcers, where they got Abathur, Brightwing, and Murky divided off. They are now legendary forms, which definitely feels like they took the popular ones and said, oh, that's the ones you like.
Let's make them super rare. That's the game, though, right? That's anything where there's a collection and rarities associated with it. That's how it works, right? The cool crap is going to be harder to get. It does feel kind of dirty, but this stuff didn't exist before, and you still have a chance to get it for free, so it doesn't make me that angry. Also, how much does it really affect your game? If anything, it's distracting.
Right. It doesn't really matter to me. For me, as a free-to-play Hearthstone player as well, I don't purchase packs, loot boxes, or anything like that because it decreases the value of my game. I want to play the game, unlock things, and feel like I owned it, that I made it my own. I got lucky after a bad game. I'm looking forward to that sort of thing. Having like a horrible loss, but at least walking away with a loot chest at the end. They're not making... The worst system in my mind is the one where they give you the chest but not the key, and then you have to go purchase the key. for its own money?
That is awful. Very, very awful. I hate lockboxes in WoW, by the way, because I don't have lockpicking.
Oh, that's a different thing. That's like
I'm
the
aware.
weirdest part that hasn't left WoW.
I am aware that it's completely different from what you just described, but I got a lockbox the other day. I thought they went away. They enraged me.
I'm surprised they haven't. That seems so antiquated.
It really does, doesn't it? Doesn't it? But anyways, there's more stuff going on. Not going to get into it. I really wanted to highlight the fact that I didn't realize there was rarity associated with heroes, but you make a very good point. They cost different amounts of gold. The only one that I'm still scratching my head about is Kalthos, because he's cheaper. So why is he legendary? Whatever.
Who knows?
It's that hair, man. It's that hair.
And his Val Kilmer face, which I still feel like needs a little bit of updating.
He does have a bit of like celebrity deathmatch clay face going on.
Yeah.
Now I just want to watch Celebrity Deathmatch. Anyways, before we move on to our strategy segment for this week, we have to thank those of you out there supporting this show, not only by listening to it and telling your friends, but also with the money. That's right. We don't do this just for free, although we would, and we have we did it for free for like 4 years before anyone started paying us money. But whatever the case is, we're very thankful for those of you supporting us at patreon.com/ITN. Thank you to our producers, Declan H., Cheesy Bob, who's always holding it down in the chat room, like he always is, and Mythdoll. Thank you all very much. But also this week, thank you to Nidus, spelled with an I, not a Y, Giovanni C., Rob C., That Mr. Matt, and Aegis, or Aegis, depending on how you prefer to pronounce it. Thank you all very much for the support. And if you enjoy Into the Nexus and would like to push us even closer to our next goal, which we're getting really close to, Kyle, we're really close. Our next goal, by the way, is we will pay Dunk Train to return to this show once a month.
Dangerously close.
Dangerously. We are, let's see, like $38? $39. We are $39 away from that goal. So 39 of you at $1. Double that at 50 cents. I'm bad at math. Times 25 cents. And so on and so forth. Whatever the case is, we really appreciate everyone supporting us, and we look forward to having Mr. Jeff Kanata on again later this month for that very reason. So now let's do it. Let's get into this week's strategy segment.
Choose a talent.
Choose a talent.
Talent? Ah, that seems generous.
And this is your brain on fell magic.
That's why he's legendary.
Because this is your brain on film.
The lines are so good.
They are really, they are phenomenal. When does he actually say I'd mana tap that? Because I've never heard it in game.
It's one of the ones where you have to click him a whole bunch of times.
Oh, okay. All right. Fair enough.
You don't get a kill and then he throws that out there. That'd be fantastic.
Oh, that'd be so good. I'd mana tap that. But I don't know. Whatever the case is. So today, Kyle, what are we talking about? We're talking about solo laners.
Yes.
We are talking about solo laners. And we have quite a few resources in the show notes. The first of which that I wanted to bring everyone's attention to because I was unfamiliar with, is it Ryoma?
I've been going with Ree, but I threw another E in there, so you're probably right.
Okay, well, I'm going to go with Ryoma. I haven't watched enough of his videos to pay attention to how he pronounces his own handle. But this gentleman puts out really cool guides, relatively short, easy to understand about many things. He recently put one out about solo laning. We will reference some of his points here today, but make sure you go and check out his YouTube. It's RYOMA if you're trying to find him, and we have a link in the show notes to his recent solo laner post. But yeah, so Kyle, where do you want to start with this? There's a lot of there's multiple avenues you could take to start the discussion about who can solo lane, what you want in your solo laner, so on and so forth.
Right. Let's start this conversation by giving the big old caveat. It depends, of course. Ring it out loud and clear. Also, your best solo laner is who you're best at in most cases, in all honesty. Understand the mechanics, know what you can do to mess with your opponent, understand what they want to do so you can mess with their goals. If you're going to fire a skill shot, wait for Illidan to jump over you and then fire it backwards. Illidan's in silver, jump over you and then immediately dash back forwards. So relax and then fire your skill shot. These sort of things are what makes a good mechanical solo lane player. don't run out of mana. Why'd you run out of mana? Because you missed all your skill shots and you didn't get the kills. You didn't collect your orbs. You didn't clear the lane efficiently. All these things are going to stack up. With that out of the way, let's talk about the actual heroes that are referenced by the pros and through practice in Hero League as a community, we've found to be those solo performers.
Very well said. Very well said.
And there's a good pile of them now. If you're just kind of join us for the first time or you're coming back to the game, Thrall's going to be on your mind. And absolutely, you're right there. But just to rattle them off here, Alarak, Rexxar, Chen, Thrall, Falstad, Illidan, Zagara, Arthas, Dahaka, Greymane, Artanis, Leoric, and Ragnaros.
I'm going to infomercial this real fast. Kyle, that doesn't sound like a whole lot of specialists.
Why, it's not, Garrett, because specialists enable building destruction. They enable other heroes to succeed in lane. And one of the best things that I think that came out of this video that he made is a big old broadcast of Sylvanas is not a solo laner anymore. She used to be able to when she was a little surprising for folks, when she had a little bit more assassin in her. But nowadays, what you truly want is your solo laner off doing that solo lane in the most distant place they can, and then Sylvanas with the main team empowering 3 other people to get up there and start destroying buildings with her. Because they're off, but she's not going to destroy them. The lane is turned off, but she's not going to clear it very fast. And that's where the problem arises.
Yeah. The other thing I like from this, which is what I've been trying to tell people for a while, and I'm hoping now that it's on a video that got rather high upvotes on Reddit, that it will actually make the circulation, is that your laner doesn't... You shouldn't be as concerned with lane clear as you think you probably should be if you are solo laning.
Right. That's an important fact.
It's an important... Yeah, it's like a distinction, I think.
And you're right to point it out as something that doesn't encapsulate these solo laners. They can do it, and in some cases, as we're going to discuss an example in a bit, you may want to increase your lane clear against your enemy to mess with their abilities. But for the most part, you want self-sustain, the ability to kite or escape, and your own mechanical skill.
Yeah. Well, where should we start? How about what should we be looking for in a solo laner?
Sounds good. Let's start with that self-sustain.
All right. So self-sustain, very important, because you're going to be out by yourself. What are you susceptible
you want to make sure
to?
You don't get poked down, that you're not completely disabled. In many cases, you'll want something to keep you going so you don't have to tap your well. Your well is going to be on a very long cooldown, and if you use it in the opening engagements, you will be without it during your first objective on most maps.
Yeah, you want to win the resource game against whoever it is you're up against. You want to make them go back to the well before you have to go back to the well.
Your goal may also be to just play it safe. It's a dangerous map. There's roamers, there's stealthies about, and just soaking is sometimes all you need. The advantage of killing your opponent in your solo lane means that that lane is no longer occupied and the enemy is going to miss out on XP. Of course, you get the XP of the kill, but that's really the damaging part, is removing the soak. And if the enemy team does not have a easy way to rotate, Falstad being a good example, if the team has a Falstad, don't overextend. Don't bust your buns to get a kill because it'll be very easily taken care of. If they don't have a global, absolutely have at it. Or you might be something like a Rexxar, in which case it may take 2 people to deal with you. That comes to responsibility of your team. And having that knowledge is another one that can be a little dangerous, but ideally, if 2 people report to you because you're doing so darn awesome and you're so unkillable in your solo lane, that means everywhere else on the game board is an advantage, whether it's 4v3 or lower if it's going to be a 3-lane map. Yeah.
Kind of files into the same category, I would argue, but I think different enough that it needs worth pointing out is kiting, the ability to kite.
And these are just characters with enough mobility and kill potential that they'll be able to finish a kill if it comes to it, like Greymane, Falstad, but also Zagara, who's able to keep up on top of creep as well as escape on the back end.
Yeah, absolutely. She can kite her enemies. She can annoy the living hell out of them with something like a Hydralisk.
Greymane's probably the most complex one of these here, because you really have to be careful about when you go in. And it's only when you know you have a kill. Otherwise, it's all about poking and keeping in mind that you're doing the most for your team by soaking in the first place and staying alive.
Yeah, there's an aggression that can come with that too. What do you think of it? Maybe this is the best time to talk about it. Maybe it's not, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. What do you think about intentionally letting the lane advance on your wall so that you can deny minion XP on the opposing player in your lane?
Absolutely, and it's really hard to do because it's there, and you're playing a video game because you'll probably be bored otherwise, so you're going to do that on-boring thing. You're going to clear the lane. Jaina's going to walk into the lane and Blizzard right on top of it. The real danger comes if there is roaming parties, if there's a stealthy. Anytime you push past the halfway mark on the map, you've entered enemy territory, and by location of the bushes and the way the maps are made, there's almost always a new avenue for you to be ganked when you extend that far. It's even more important on something like Tomb of the Spider Queen. If you throw out your lane clear and destroy that lane while the other characters are present, those gems will never report to you. You'll never get a hold of them. It's much better to just relax, sit back, let the orb and those gems be pushed to your gate. Yeah, you'll lose some ammo, but that's not as important as actually the wall just being alive.
Yeah, and all this comes into your resource management, in this case your ability management as well. You shouldn't be throwing out as many abilities as you possibly can to clear the wave. Let it move back, go hide in a bush, wait until the enemy player comes up to get the XP as it pushes the wall, and use your abilities to keep them away so that they push back out of the XP radius of their minions.
I find this really easy to do with characters like Alarak that have really consistent poke. And for Alarak 2, it's only going to target the hero that you put it on, or any unit, and the things in between you. Whereas Thrall can get a little complicated because you want it to bounce as many times as possible and give you back that sweet health. But this goes beyond orbs. It goes beyond gems. If you understand that the enemy Probius is doing a mineral build at level 1, if the Butcher just exists in the first place, he's going to want meat. And anything you can do to deny them those drops while they're invisible to you, understanding those characters means you'll have a successful 1v1.
Yep, absolutely. Now, if you can't kite, if you can't kind of stutter step and keep them in arm's reach and keep doing damage while you do not take damage, you better be able to escape.
And there's plenty of characters with good escapes. Maybe it's just that they have a route they can throw backwards like Arthas and walk away. That's self-sustained, helping them out as they give themselves a little death coil heal while they go. But Leoric absolutely has it. This is why he's one of the greatest wards, as we discussed in a previous episode, able to get sight and also run away very quickly using that Wraith Walk. Illidan, yes. Shen, Thrall, Zagara, all these names work pretty well.
Yeah, they can all get into trouble as fast as they can get out of it for the most part.
But ideally, you're not really getting in trouble in the first place.
Right.
You're just playing it safe, and if the opportunity comes, that's why you have these kiting and these dive abilities, because you're going to make an engage and win when you see the enemy make their mistake.
Yep, absolutely. We already talked about the subject of specialists, so we'll move right past that. What's next, Kyle?
Let's talk about the individual lanes and where you will find a solo lane in the future. Top lane. Towers of Doom, Braxis, Infernal Shrines, Dragonshire, and Battlefield. Some of these have been decided through almost tradition and long-standing observations of pros, what we've seen in the actual gameplay as it's evolved from the HGC leaking down to us. Some of them are very obvious, that there's something in the way. It's dangerous to move through. Towers of Doom is a great example there because the middle and the bottom are pretty close together. It's a big open area around that center tower. If you want to move to the top, you will be walking by big, long bushes where someone could be waiting to kill you.
Yep.
What's Infernal Shrines, very much the same thing. I think the most bizarre one's probably Battlefield, where we just kind of decided.
It's symmetrical, and if anything, the top, the center smokestack and the circle is actually closer to your side if you're on the left. So Yeah, I don't get it. Yeah, Battlefield is the one that's just like, this is just, and it was made so by
we
the
decided
community.
at some point, and I'm sure there's great examples why maybe the mercenaries are 2 step closer on the right side. Those sort of things don't really matter us in Hero League. So certainly, if you are the solo laner on a 3-lane map, join the middle fight. It's going to be a very important place to learn about your enemy and participate and rehearse your very first engagement.
Yep, and then break off and start solo laning.
Exactly. And usually, if you're going to do a solo laner, you probably discussed this early on, whether you said it when the game started up, or in the case of something like Braxis, where we're all really looking for a solo laner almost as much as we look for a tank and support. You'll probably just go straight there. There's no middle lane or fight to get involved in.
Yep.
And two, if you haven't heard, the middle lane is fought over because that's where the minions meet first. It's the shortest line. All the minions spawn at the same time. Going up along those big curves of the top and bottom take longer.
Yep. As for bottom lane, who you'll be solo laning the bot lane on Tomb of the Spider Queen. This is like my comfort zone, by the way, Kyle. Solo laning bot as Zagara on Tomb of the Spider Queen.
You are very much removed from the rest of the battle.
Yeah, that's like my hero's vacation.
I like it. And Tomb of the Spider Queen lasts long enough because of the gem collection that the decision-making process of the solo laner isn't very complex. I will stay solo until I have to turn in, at which point, hopefully we get my fort down here and I can finally join you all.
Yep, absolutely. Now let's get into the Nexus's patented favorite section. It depends land.
Which is Garden of Terror, Sky Temple, and Blackhearts?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, think about Blackhearts, Kyle.
Absolutely. That's why I said it with even more confusion, because I realized it as I read it here. You're right. It's sometimes the bottom, but it's also sometimes the double soak Zool in the top, Nazebo, or whatever it was that was trying to counter that character.
Yeah. So this is probably let's start with Blackhearts because we're there already. One of the most popular things in recent months that you probably hear mentioned is the double soak strategy. But there's not that many heroes that can really pull it off. And the heroes that can are extremely susceptible to ganks.
Right. Zool, extremely powerful, lost some power with patches over time, but creating those piles of skeletons that walk down the lane and create push and actual building destruction as well is very good. But Nazebo is now coming to his own there because he's going for stacks at level 20. Not necessarily a level 20 map, but he does it very well, particularly with level 4 Blood Ritual in tow. You'll also see other characters doing this. Not always solo laners that we mentioned earlier, such as Jaina is a pretty powerful counter to Zool. Yeah. There's also Greymanes that often do this in the top.
Yeah, I mean, Blackhearts breaks a lot of the rules that we already set out at the very beginning of this too, because if specifically the double soak, right? We led this talk with, hey, here's a really important thing to keep a note. Wave clear is not as important as you think it is for solo laning, unless you're trying to double soak on Blackhearts because you want to kill them fast enough so that you can rotate and catch the next wave in the other lane.
So you have an early XP advantage, so your 4 in the bottom are winning their 4v4 ideally, and you are outpacing your enemy in the top, getting building damage done.
Yep. It's also a lot of pressure if you are that player, and it's something where I feel like this is the first time in this discussion we should talk about heroes etiquette. I don't want to force anyone into this.
No. If you die up there, we are now not missing 1 lane, but 2 lanes. And to replace you, we have to pull from our 4v4 in the bottom. Plus, we probably didn't maybe get a global on Blackheart's Bay in the first place because we were so concerned with getting a support tank, a Merker, and your double soak character.
Yeah,
it is.
It's high risk, it's high reward.
And so destructive to the team for that guy to die up there.
Exactly. So if you are not comfortable doing that and you are not trying to push it on someone else and no one else is volunteering, like immediately, like the overeager dude in that class that I know you all had growing up that's just, ooh, I'm going to double soak. Don't do it. Do the old school and just put your solo laner bottom. So that's why it depends on Blackhearts.
And that's why I play this role, is because it is a way to have a really, truly impactful Hero League pick and being in control of the most important role and giving that gravitas, getting that snowball going for your team is going to make them feel good. And so I suggest absolutely identify these opportunities. And opportunities like this can also be riding the terror. Be the guy, because you know you can execute it better than someone else on your team.
Yeah. Let's go back to the other. It depends. Maps Garden of Terror. Why does it depend? Well, it depends because you probably shouldn't be solo laning whatever lane you plan to push with the terror that you just mentioned, Kyle. And that's going to depend on your team. You're going to have to talk.
Right, unless you want to get the walls down early. But then, again, here is where you would mess up and say, well, we want the bottom wall down early so we can go and take the terror and destroy that fort. We'll put Sylvanas down there by her. Well, now we've already messed up.
No, don't put her by her. Support her. Double down on that Sylvanas. Let her get her job done because she's not going to get it done alone. Matter of fact, she's probably going to give a kill or two to the opposing team in the process.
Oh, and remember, too, your very first summon, whether it's a Dragon Knight or the Garden Terror, is pretty weak. And getting in deep, particularly with towers firing on you, is a very bad idea. One of the best things you can do is just farm the walls. Get the walls down, get those towers down for the XP. So on your next terror, you have an opportunity to get those forts. Or if you win a fight, now you have a wall down. You're not going to be delayed by taking that quick fort.
Yeah. And then Sky Temple. That depends, well, mostly because of the regimented order of the altars in the beginning of the game. It's always going to be at the top and the middle at first and then the bottom. And then because of that, you should start your solo laner in the bottom. But then after the first phase of the two altars, you should actually rotate that solo laner top. And it's the rest of the team's job to keep pressure on that bottom lane and grab a merc.
I do like solo lane in the bottom. Put in even a Brightwing down here. Not necessarily a solo lane character. Dahaka is a great pick. Just someone who can join up easily and delay that joining to the very last moment and get me XP.
Yeah, this is my other happy place as Zagara, by the way.
It's a good place for her. And you can get a lot of pushing done. You're not as powerful in team fights before 10 in a lot of cases, so missing out on her doesn't hurt.
Yeah, 100%. And then there's, I chalk this up to no one knows, Cursed Hollow and Warhead Junction.
You probably have the same sort of goals we discussed in Garden Terror, so it would be decided among your team. But as for the actual logistics of the maps and which one's going to be safest, it really does depend. I do favor bottom lane if I'm on the left side on Cursed Hollow. And top if I'm on the right side, just because the way those bushes line up.
Yeah, I'll give you that. Cursed Hollow is one, and obviously all of this, like we always say, you know, it depends. This is not concrete. This is a guideline. So obviously switch things up if things are not working out. If the enemy team is reporting to you in a certain way, if they're really pushing back, rotate, go to a different lane, figure it out, swap up. And Cursed Hollow is my favorite place. I like it because it's just kind of like, well, how did the opposing team break up? Can I actually solo lane against the hero I've been matched up against? If the answer is no, talk to your team, try and rotate lanes.
Particularly during the objective switch. There's been an increase, and I'm very happy about it because it means that the game is growing, that there's new players joining the game. But there's been a huge increase in people being like, why didn't you call missing? Well, it's Heroes of the Storm. Welcome.
Yeah, welcome to the game.
Nobody calls missing here. Because every 2 minutes we have a dinner bell and we all switch lanes and play musical chairs.
Yep.
Or they'll also get a little upset if they can't get someone to swap them out. It's like, well, just play safe. Play behind your wall. Soak it for us. You'll be out of there in 2 minutes.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's one of my biggest things that I'm still working on is just the panic. I need help down here. And you're always just like, just chill.
Make it happen.
It's all going to be fine. The XP is more important than the wall. Fine. They'll get a little more XP. Just we can't report. Deal with it.
Let's break this down even further because we've given a lot of general information out there, but I think the big map that everyone really needs to be aware of their solo laner is going to be Braxis. And if you are climbing, it is just one map of the many we have, but it's an opportunity to increase your victories there. It will be that top lane. The pros, when you watch them on this map, will always try to pick their solo laner last. They don't want to give away what they're going to be doing that solo lane with. And each solo lane pick of the heroes have different counters and different ways to play against them. Not only sort of, it's not rock, paper, scissors at all. It's very much how you engage and what choices you make in that lane that change those characters. And some do have advantages. Pros want to get those last so they don't get countered. In your own home games, be the guy. Wherever you are, first pick, whatever. Just make it happen, use your mechanics, and you'll come out superior. Establish the role so your team's not left in the dust.
I like that. I like that a lot. Again, so often your advice comes to be a bit of a bully. Just be prepared to stand and deliver.
Yeah, absolutely. When the bell rings and it's time to fight, you do need to perform because people will be very tilted. If you built and constructed the team based on your pick and now you're not performing well.
Yeah.
Every game is an audition. And speaking confidently and getting that dialogue in the draft is extremely popular. I want to, and I don't have the resources, and I wish I could just magically take my brain and put it on the internet somehow, but I want to, I want that arena helper. And there's multiple websites for Hearthstone, but every time I've done an arena and it's boring as heck to be like, and that was my 3 choices, and let me Excel data sheet those into this website here so it tells me exactly what I want. But I always have at least 3 wins more every time I take the time to draft arena with a helper going at the same time.
That's a good way to learn. If you did that enough times, eventually you probably wouldn't need the helper.
Right, and we need a tool like that for Heroes of the Storm. So if anyone's out there, I mean, make this happen. This could be really helpful. There's no reason we need to lose in the draft, and getting that baseline problem out of the way would solve a lot of issues.
All right. Well, let's give the listeners a little bit of something then. Let's do it for them. Using Braxis as our example, let's go through some quick examples of counter drafting, starting with the bane of my existence on Braxis, Rexxar.
Rexxar is extremely powerful. He's going to hold that point. He will regenerate. You won't be able to reach him with a lot of your solo laning characters. Ragnaros, probably one of the most popular. Oh, yes, solo lane, put him up there. Even Thrall, put him up there. But Rexxar, the man, is going to be distant from his bear, who's also soaking the XP, and he really has no reason to interact with you unless you make a mistake. To counter Rexxar, you need to poke him. He's way back there. Alarak is going to be your very best choice in this case. I love Alarak personally, and I've been just dying for an opportunity to bring him into Hero League, and I feel like with this level 4 inclusion they're going to be making in his update, that could very much be the case. Another opportunity you can think of is Leoric. Leoric's going to drain the bear, and that bear is not stutter stepping usually. It's not moving in a very unique way. It'll be easy to hit with your drain. Now you can get more aggressive as Leoric and muscle him out of there.
I don't know why I love the phrase drain the bear so much, but that just instilled me with a great deal of happiness. You're absolutely right. You bully the living heck out of Rexxar. You got to land that drain hope, obviously, but do it. Land the drain hope. Dahaka is another one. There's another guy. Every time I see Dahaka picked on Braxis, I'm just like, why aren't I a better Dahaka? And the answer is it's not worth my time. His kit doesn't translate over to anyone else.
He's very unique. He has a lot of decisions to make throughout the map. You can get stranded if you mess up your rotation and your timing on those digs. Yeah,
but the big thing is like is confidence fighting Dahaka. Know you can avoid the tongue. Juke that tongue. And then just kind of, poke him out. He's going to burrow. Right. Get ready for that burrow. Don't blow every ability you have. Anticipate it. After he burrows, after he tongues, light him up.
Particular, don't waste sustained damage lock-on spells. If you're Falstad, do not put your lightning rod on him, unless he's on cooldown from his burrow. Do not drain hope him as Leoric, because he's just going to burrow and turn it off. You need to be patient there, but in all likelihood, Dahaka doesn't have a reason to activate that unless you use one of those abilities. So you've already messed up the draft a little bit. Don't draft Leoric and Falstad to counter Dahaka in the top lane. That does change with level. Falstad's lane clear becomes superior at 7, but we're talking about Braxis here. Level 7, you may have already lost the game in some cases. Always comebacks, of course, but it's a dangerous map.
Very much so. So who would you counter Dahaka with other than not Leoric?
Greymane is a fantastic counter to Dahaka because you will just be safe. Use your range. You've got a little bit of lane clear. With that elixir of yours, you're just going to poke him out, poke him whenever you can. And if he makes a mistake, that's when you can jump in and close. If he misses his tongue across a wide variety of characters, that's when you can really make the big push and close on him. You can also try to overwhelm him with Zagara. Zagara has Hydralisk. It attaches to a hero, but if Dahaka burrows, the Hydralisk just goes, oh, I'll attack something else in lane. Now you're still pushing.
Yeah, it's not entirely wasted. It's a good distinction to make. What about Mr. Thrall here? I mean, the big thing there is you got to watch out for that root.
Right. Don't get hit by the root because everything will follow that. That is your number one goal, is to soak out and not get rooted down.
Yeah, and actually, if you're good at dodging Dahaka's tongue, you're probably going to be good at dodging Thrall's wolves.
Chen is a great counter to Thrall. And you may have heard this other places. It's not common. There's not a lot of Chen players right now. He never has really been heavy in the meta. So they're a passionate few, and I'm always excited to see a Chen on my team.
It's like the Vikings
This is a
players.
good excuse for it.
Yeah, it's like a Vikings player.
Yeah.
Takes a special kind of disorder to want to be a Chen main.
It's just far enough, and I feel like Nazeebo, in his wackiness, also is kind of over that hill a little bit of too wacky for most people. You like give him flames on his shoulders, like just make all his armor black with like green flames. Everyone plays Nazeebo all day long. He's too cool now. But that goofiness just does enough, pushes him over the edge to make him available in the draft.
Yeah, and then the hero you mentioned at the very beginning of this, which was like, Ragnaros, just Ragnaros, take Ragnaros, get up there, go, 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 go. What do we do against Ragnaros, Kyle?
Well, in fact, according to the guides here, and according to many pro players, as Ragnaros has slowly received all his nerfs that have pushed him into place, Rag is the worst solo laner of them all. Of the 14 I listed at the top there, Ragnaros is the worst. Because he's easily countered. Don't fight in your minion wave. Now Ragnaros can do nothing against you, almost. Of course, don't run with the meatball as it slides across the ground. You're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
But just by not standing inside that and abusing him from outside of the minion wave, you're going to make him want to regenerate that there. He may overpush you, but guess what? There's nothing he can do if he overpushes you. Now you're safe on XP in the first place. Some characters can just clear the lane faster, and now he can't even get out of his own wall. Once they hit the wall, they build a concave, the minions, and his Ragnaros Sulfurous Smash doesn't hit anybody anymore. So over-pushing Ragnaros is a very powerful play.
All good points. And if he gets too close to your wall, you might just be able to kill him.
Yeah, he doesn't have any root of his own. He's often being drafted right now as a bruiser kind of role, replacing Thrall, but he has no root. And we're really learning just how big a mistake that is for current Rag to fulfill that job. He could do it if the Blast Wave build was a little better, but it's not for now.
Yeah.
So, of course, bringing it back, idea number one is know your character, know the enemy well, so you can take advantage of them. The next thing you want to add in on that is any counters you might notice. The tables available in Ryoma's post here are fantastic for you if you're interested in this sort of thing, particularly when it comes to something like Braxis, where you'll be very isolated in your 1v1. Your next thing to think about is zoning out those meats, orbs, XP, if you can push them back that far. And the next thing to add on top of that layer would be your own minion wave, clearing them faster so you push further in certain moments, letting your minions die in moments so they can't regenerate. If you're up against Sonya, for example, you should be letting your minions die as fast as possible so she can stop regenerating. Once your lane's out of the way and all you have is her lane and Sonya herself, that's the time to lay into her. Or think of Artanis. Artanis has shields that pop up rhythmically. When the shields are on cooldown and he's not auto-attacking anything, that's when you lay into him. If you're Thrall versing Artanis, don't put Wind Fury. Don't put Lightning into Artanis when he just popped a shield. Just wait 3 seconds and then do it. Now it's effective damage, and those shields will be applied over it. Guess what? He's still at that same health underneath once that next shield fades.
That's one of the biggest jumps, I think, in just overall player skill in this game is ability patience.
Yes. And it's difficult because it's a video game.
Yeah.
And we're going to be doing all the fun things at all the times.
Yeah. And Heroes in itself is I think, it's more forgiving with its abilities compared to other MOBAs. Something we talked about a lot very early on in this show because we were coming over from Dota 2 and we're like, oh my God, man, I can just hit Q all the time. It doesn't matter if I miss. No one cares because it's off cooldown again. And I've got plenty of mana and there's this well thing that fills up my mana. But like your Artanis example, depending on who you're fighting, wait for certain abilities.
And it's safe to do so because the games are shorter. You're not waiting for that long. Mm-hmm. You may have a 20-second basic ability cooldown in another MOBA, but it also stuns for 4 seconds. Whereas here you have a 10-second, and it's going to stun for 2 seconds. So just be patient. This is really powerful information. Use it wisely. And of course, yes, Alarak, Rexar are cited in this particular article, in this particular graph, as being the most powerful solo laners in the game right now. You got to hit your combos. You got to actually be able to use the abilities. So get yourself something from this list. Pick out at least one, because it doesn't really matter if you get countered in most leagues. Just be mechanical. Be awesome.
Well said, Kyle. Well, I hope this was helpful to everyone. And again, there were many guys that we've referenced along the course of this talk. This was not just all out of Kyle and my brain. So definitely go and support these other creators who have brought this up. We have links right at the top of the strategy segment in our show notes. You can find those by going to amove.tv/ITN and finding the post for number 161. If you're watching live, it's not up yet. It's because the podcast isn't up yet. But if you're listening on podcast, you can always find it there, linked at the very bottom of the episode post. Now, let's wrap this up with an email.
Darkness stopped calling.
Does anyone else hear that buzzing?
Hold on. Darkness just texted me.
You can send your emails to itncast@gmail.com. And I said email. We have quite a few emails to talk about today, as a matter of fact. But the first is from Sharku, and it's kind of an announcement more than an email. And it's the Gathering Storm Tournament. This is A-Move, Frog Pants, Convert to Raid, Geekly, and Lords of the Storm are hosting a community tournament together. This is a for-fun tournament, very much in the spirit of the Heroes of the Pants from last year, if you remember that. Basically, choose yourself a community, wave a flag. It's a fun throwdown. It's going to be on June 3rd and June 4th. You can find out more information at gatheringstormtournament.com.
Go ahead and sign up over there, and there will be delightful prizes. There will be a bit of a celebration that weekend as well. I'll be doing some casting for it too. So come enjoy a friendly tournament with us. As HGC breaks out and things get serious again.
Yeah. While we're in the middle of announcements, I have one that I keep meaning to add to the top of the template, because if it's not in a template, it doesn't get announced. Con Before the Storm is doing their fundraiser for BlizzCon this year. If you are unaware of this, this is a con that happens in the Hilton, right next door to the Anaheim Convention Center, right next door to where BlizzCon takes place every year, the night before BlizzCon. Last year, I hosted a Hearthstone panel from Con Before the Storm, and you, Kyle Fergusson, were on the Heroes of the Storm panel. You didn't host, right? Scott hosted?
Correct.
You were a panelist on the Heroes of the Storm panel at Con Before the Storm. There's parties, there's an art gallery, there's panels. It's all around a very good time, and it's an event that we've been going to for many years now and really enjoy. The people that put on Con Before the Storm put a ton of work into it. Anyway, their Kickstarter is up and running. You can find it at kickstarter.conbeforestorm. There's no the in their URL.com. So that's kickstarter.conbeforestorm.com. And we're not only mentioning it because we like it, we're mentioning it because we're actually part of it this year. We are one of the stretch goals. If you've been attending BlizzCon for the last few years, you may know that we do a meetup every year at the bowling alley. You probably also know that the bowling alley is about a mile walk from where BlizzCon actually takes place. It's a pretty cheap Uber ride, but most of us just walk. And when you've had as many drinks as I have had, at the end of that night, it's a long walk back to the hotel. So it's actually the very first stretch goal of Calm Before the Storm this year is if we hit it, we'll be partnering with them. They're going to give us a private room, a bartender, a place to throw down and have our party right there in the Hilton, right next door to Calm Before the Storm as part of Calm Before the Storm. And we can all hang out there, and we won't have to choose what party we want to go to. We can just intermingle between all of the parties happening at the Hilton. It's going to be a good time. So go check it out. They're actually very close to hitting their main goal already, and it hasn't been up for that long. So very excited about that. Our next email comes to us from Corix, who says, "Hello, Garrett and Kyle. I really love the show, and the advice you both give really helps my game. After hearing Kyle's success with Muradin, I decided to give him a go myself. However, I always seem to run into mana issues. Can either of you advise how you manage his mana and any tips on doing so? I also get a little stuck on what talents to pick, so a general overview of the best build would be fantastic. Many thanks for all of your great shows." I'm just going to double up on this, Kyle. I'm having the exact same issue with Muradin right now.
So the number one reason you're out of mana on Muradin is you're missing your skill shots, which means you are using it right again after 10 seconds. You might miss that one too. It's 60 mana. I mean, Stormbolt is really expensive. The best way to cut back on your mana expenditures on Muradin is to also help your team by stopping confusing them. Muradin's very confusing for your team because you know you're invincible in many cases. You know that you maybe have your level 20 hardened shield. You know you have Avatar. You know that you were a smart man and you got yourself Thunderbird and Healing Static. So you're just going to last forever in there. Your team doesn't know that. So when you make an engagement, that can be obvious because you're going to leap in, you're going to do a body block, you're going to stun, you're going to say, hey, this guy. Engagements are fine on Muradin. It's the defense that gets really expensive and quite bad. Let's say you're trying to stop your team from all dying because the whole enemy team just came rushing at you. So you fortressed up. You're right there standing in front of them. You got a body block going on. Nobody's getting by you because he laid down a Thunderclap with Thunderburn at level 4 behind it. So now you have a second kind of shock zone that's going on. You already have a body block. You just laid down a continuous area effect that costs you 50 mana. That's done. Get out of there. Don't spend a Stormbolt. And we all do it. We all put that Stormbolt right in Arthas' face. He's not going anywhere. He has no mobility. There's nothing he's going to do to your backline. You've already stopped him. So be done. Leap away if you have walkout, even. Save that mana. Those are the big moments, and you're really confusing your team. Because when they see that stun go into Arthas, they go, oh, we're killing Arthas. And now everyone's lying on the tank. And now everyone ran into his aura, and the backline collapses on your backline, and you lose. And Muradin survives because he's amazing, and he leaps away, but he's the only one alive, and he's not going to get anything done.
So it's a use of Stormbolt into the tank.
Those are the most expensive things that you're doing. You can't counteract that by taking Perfect Storm at level 1. It decreases the mana cost. It makes you a little weird for a time because it has a quest on it. Hitting heroes increases its damage. But that is a decent way to give yourself a little bit of training wheels that you might not want later on. It's not like our Nazebo or our Raynor analogies. This is something that you can have for now and probably deal with getting rid of later.
Very cool. Our final email is from Ed Loby. Ed Loby writes, Blizzard seems to get the draft more into a rock, paper, scissors principle, e.g. Johanna versus AA and Noob versus Mages, etc. Pro players are giving tips how to draft on which map against or with certain heroes, e.g. McIntyre or Grubby. You can, or he says, you tell us to play the few heroes that we are comfortable with. How does this match together? Is Ed Loby's question. Where is the line? I feel like I could go into a Hero League game with, say, level 7 hero that I played a few times in the past weeks rather than playing an 11 hero. That doesn't match, 11 hero that doesn't match well with the team comp. A little bit there, Loby, I think you're answering your own question. I mean, if you have, if you haven't been playing that level 11 hero recently, you probably shouldn't be picking them anyway. Level is irrelevant in terms of your current capacity for talent with a hero.
Right. So all this information, and remember, pros, single target, destroy one hero wicked fast in a team fight scenario. So their picks aren't what we're going to do. That's why we talk about telegraphing and the Murden example there where you're going to confuse your own team. That doesn't happen on voice comms. Actually, it will happen in your casual voice comms because people are going to react to what they see, and then you'll say it 3 seconds later because we're not all pro.
But if you were playing with the same people for a year, that's not going to happen on voice comms.
They'll probably know that your Murden likes to do that, and then you'll disengage, and it's no big deal.
Yep.
You're right, though. The perfect counter isn't worth anything if you can't mechanically play it, and your best hero isn't worth anything if it ruins the comp. You are going to need to have a roster, and it's one of my favorite parts of the game is experimenting, getting out there, and seeing how things ebb and flow. I'm excited to kind of have Tychus back on, but I have my one little place for him. Really find those words of power for yourself. Sit down. Right now. Right out. Just like we did with the map keywords, which are still available across many show notes. We continue to bring these up. But have those mantras for yourself. Spider Queen. Lane clear. We're not going to win if we can't clear a lane. Let's make sure we have enough of it so we don't lose just because we had a bad draft. Same thing goes with your heroes. If you understand, Johanna's we talked about her last week. She's in a tough place right now. Not necessarily win rate. She just doesn't have enough. It's weird because she's the old kitchen sink, but blind just is kind of weak at the moment. Outside of Cassia, who's doing great damage, but still kind of lower on the win rates. If you know that you can get everybody on Tomb of the Spider Queen to do a double soak with Johanna because it's so easy because here goes the tank, walks in, goes, all of these guys, and you go, those ones, and you go, yes, let's kill them. And then we'll go top, follow the Johanna, and then we'll go mid and back and forth. It's so easy to do. And much like your solo laner, that Nazebo, that Zul on Blackheart's Bay, you're going to make so much gravity around yourself, and everyone's going to go, oh my God, he knows exactly what he's doing. Let's all do things that are good too.
I like all of that. And what I'm taking from it, Kyle, do you want to know what I just took from that? And I hope you just don't go, yeah, this is wrong. What are you thinking? Is just keep playing. And if folks have listened to you, Kyle, talk about the heroes you've been playing in weeks recently, last 2 weeks have been Muradin. This week is Nazebo. But you also talked about how Tychus put you up over the edge and got you to a new rank in Diamond. And if you've been listening to us for a while, you know Tychus has been, was your jam for quite a while, but also a while ago. You haven't really gone back to him since the change. So the big thing here is keep adding on. And sometimes you can go back to a hero that you haven't played in a while because for maybe 3 months, that was your jam. You've logged more games on that hero within those 3 months than anyone else. You understand exactly when to pick them, and that can stay with you. I've jumped back on Zagara after not really touching her for 4 months, and it's working out beautifully.
There's also a factor of everyone's kind of forgotten there, so it may not be that you're going places. Maybe you've been 50-50 all your games, but merely the community has grabbed on to somebody else for now, and nobody knows what to do against Zagara. Great time to bring her out. But my situation also gets a little complicated because things change as I level up, as I go through these ranks, as I climb closer and closer back into Masters. Zul'jin has to fall off the roster. I love him. I love his kit. I love the bad guy and just his whole, just being able to heal yourself means so much to me. I don't want to be Paper Vala out there. But you know what? If you pick Raynor into Chromie, you're going to have a bad time because he has no mobility. You'll want something with a shift. And as you climb, being mobile and being able to adjust your position very quickly, whether it's a Howling Blast or that sand coming at you, you're going to need to be able to do it, and some characters may need to fall off. Based on your needs, you may find that as you go up, Zul'jin becomes the perfect guy. And those are your needs as you see them.
Yeah, absolutely. So... yeah, I mostly think about what you're comfortable with in terms of your stable, of things that are already established, because you're going to know what you're already comfortable with. I look to things like Blizzard's recent change to armor and the pro scene to think about what I should be learning next. And if you listen to this show about what you should be learning next, you're probably going to hear a lot of things that aren't necessarily the pro, because we tend to focus on things that are actually going to make it through the draft.
Right, that too. We're not going to say, everyone go play Ragnaros while he's OP. It's going to get banned out.
Right, you can go play Ragnaros now. You'll probably get him.
But think about my earlier Lost Vikings example. He was so jazzed that I said, hell yeah. And I even had a Nova on Blackheart's Bay this week. And it was shown as soon as the draft started. And I was like, I don't know about Nova. And they're like, guys, it's a big map. There's a solo laner in the top. And I'm going to take Bribe. Yeah, bring it on. I know you know what you're going to do.
Yeah, you just got the pants charmed off you by a Nova. Congratulations, Kyle.
I did. And
did it pan out?
No, sadly, Nova got banned or something like that. Oh, they picked a Tassadar early on, so we moved off the Nova.
Oh, okay. Well, at least the Nova moved off of it.
Right, that was even better. And I was like, oh, thank you. No, honestly, the real romance this week was, I don't know your name out there, Kerrigan, but you loved jumping inside my zombie walls when I had someone in there, and I loved you for it. And if you were on Infernal Shrines with me, my Nazebo, we made a connection that day. And I want to play with you, man. I want to duel with you. That was the best time I've ever had.
Kyle, I had a moment on Nazebo today that I feel like I missed. I think this is why people love him. I got enough stacks where a Probius was just on me. So I zombie walled him in with me and murdered his face.
Nice.
He was not going to kill me with how much damn health I had.
Such a great moment. Or when you're stuck in there, but you just ice block through it.
Mm-hmm.
So many great moments.
Yep,
Such a
that
great
too.
Character.
Oh, and God bless you if you get your Gargantuan up before you hit the ice block.
Oh, or just, he even have Vile Infection at 20. I know we're preaching the word of Nazebo today, but one auto attack is half a Greymane's health. He was 3 levels down, granted, but
Yes, well played. Well played. All right, well, I think that's going to wrap it up for this episode. If you are a patron, stick around for the after show games. As always, thank you to our badass patrons. You are all so damn generous. I can't believe the support the show is getting. If you enjoy Into the Nexus and you would like to support it, check out patreon.com/ITM. We really are very close to being able to cut Mr. Dugtrade a check every week and have him come back. And by the way, he's not asking us to pay him. We just really want to. We like having him on. He's one of the most complimented guests that we have had on this show. So we would like to pay him to come on. We would like to pay him for our time and for his time, and Patreon lets us do that. So thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Not only that, the quality of this show is capable because of the patrons, and we truly believe that is going to increase here as a storm. Share the love.
Yeah, if I had to still show up to an office Monday through Friday, this show would not sound like this.
That is very true.
It would just be, hey, dude, what'd you play in your 3 games this week?
I remember those days.
Yep. So thank you for allowing us to do that, everyone. This was Kyle and I's dream for a very long time. So anyways, thanks again to our producers, Declan H, Cheesy Bob, and Mythdoll. We've got swag available. We have t-shirts at shirts.amove.tv, and we have custom etched glassware at etched.amove.tv. Check it out. We record live Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/amovetv, even when Star Wars Celebration is happening in my damn backyard, and I just want to dress up like a stormtrooper and dance. We're still doing it, still bringing it to you. And again, that's thanks to the patrons. And also because I'm still very jazzed about Heroes, even though there's Star Wars and new Hearthstone this week.
It's an awesome costume you have.
Oh, that's all Daryl. My buddy Daryl's let me borrow his 501st Sand Trooper outfit. He even said, just alter it. He's like, I haven't worn this thing in like a decade. Just alter the damn thing. I don't care. It's going on a mannequin when it gets back. So I'm very excited. Thank you, Daryl. You can follow the show on Twitter at ITNcast. Big thanks to Gorath for our intro music. Huge thanks to Brian Griffith for our outro music. You can find his work at briangriffithmusic.com. Gorath, I don't think you have a website up for your music. You should probably make one. But whatever the case is, check out Core Heroes, because that's what he's on. Kyle, where can folks find you?
You can find me this weekend at twitch.tv/Kyle Fergusson. Team League is back. Scott Johnson, John Joda, John Jagger, Bo Schwartz, Kristen Ashton, all joining up. And we've been doing a fantastic thing recently where we open up with a nice little unranked to kind of get everyone warmed up. Then we hit the Team League hard for about 2.5 hours. And then we end it with a thing I'm calling Pick 2, where the chat's been picking out 2 heroes and then I get to decide the other 3, and we make a comp out of it.
Ooh.
And it has been a real delight. It's been a lot of fun. So one of my favorite things is that the end of that show right now. So check that out. And, of course, the grind will continue next week on that same channel.
Very cool. Folks, I'm on Twitter at GarrettArt. Every podcast I do can be found at namove.tv. That includes The Angry Chicken for Hearthstone, my solo show, The Angry Nerd, where lately I've been talking a lot of Zelda, and, well, this here show. And other than that, check out nomoonart.com. That's my graphic design portfolio. And that's going to wrap it up before the show. I've lost Kyle's video. I hope he's still there.
I'm here.
Okay.
It's just Skype.
Just Skype things. Well, whatever the case is, thank you all for tuning in. Kyle, thank you as always for
You're welcome.
being the font of knowledge that is this show. And until next time, good luck and have fun, everyone. And because of where I'm about to be tomorrow, may the Force be with you.
Take care.